This we said fillets, chamfers, letters on cans, intersections with round objects. Oh, that was like a kettle, and buttons. Which one first? Buttons is the easiest one. Buttons is the easiest one, so we're gonna start off with that. So this is just gonna be an assortment of demos here. Right, already, so even one thing where I was just telling Phoebe earlier about, dry marker, and I can see this marker is kind of dry the way it finishes up, right? It starts pretty nice, but it finishes up a little dry. So I'm gonna want to refill it. Again, I have multiple markers, so I can just reach over and grab another one, and hopefully it doesn't need to be refilled, and you don't have to worry about it. But when you're sketching, you might just have one, and it's probably fine to have one marker, then you refill it. So I said buttons were the easiest one. So even buttons, even like a keyboard, like how do you draw every single key? No. If I'm drawing a keyboard, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna draw the sort of surface of that keyboard. And you can just say that there's a little bit of an angle to this keyboard. Again, even though I can't see that backside, I am still drawing it. I guess the vertical is easier. I kind of worked a little backwards on the plotting there. Right, there's my keyboard, again, oversimplified. And now I want to draw some keys on that surface. No, I'm not going to draw every single key. I'm just going to go ahead here, draw some lines on that surface, matching our perspective there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. If I pull those lines across, right, that's going to give me 5 rows right there. And then I can just start, again, kind of parallel to this line right here, right, dividing it up. I need to kind of match that one. Should have done a phone. It's a lot easier than this, but this will really drive point home. Okay. And now I have a bunch of keys on there. Does it match a keyboard exactly? No, because in a real keyboard, the keys are, again, they're sort of offset from each other, right? This brick pattern, and we got these like different sizes on the side. But again, initially, this is how I would do it. Now we want to go and maybe try one that's a little bit more accurate. Well, one thing I might start off with is to just draw the keyboard flat, similar to what we were just looking at before on the demo of sketching the text. Right, so doing it flat first, and make an adjustment here, like my lines are a little not parallel from each other, so don't use that top one. And the keys are here, and then here, and then here, and then here. Actually, and there's another row in there. That is shorter and longer, and then short here. And then we have the space bar. And then we have keys all lined up here. And this one should actually be spreading between these two. And then we have this like brick pattern. So I can do this. And then again, brick pattern, right? So they are offset from each other, offset from each other, offset from each other. Again, I say that as a reminder to myself, literally, like it's as much for you to hear me say it as it is for me to remind myself that that's what I'm doing as I'm sketching. Sometimes you will catch me talking to myself as I'm sketching. So the benefit of, say, a tool like the marker is that it's quite thick. So I can actually use that maybe when I transfer over to pen as like the space between keys. Okay, normally I would not spend the time detailing all of them out. No, the measurements are not exactly equal, which is another reason why I would not add all of them into pen. But as long as I'm here, right, we can see how it gives me a nice like guideline, right? I still have to be a little careful, but I can think just a little bit less and be a little bit more reassured that overall I'm gonna get a pretty good pattern. Like individually, some of them are not working out well, but overall, again, it's pretty good at getting that pattern of the keyboard in there. So I can take and do that same thing in perspective, again, for this repeated pattern. I was just telling some people I have to change it up to get things a little more visually interesting on the page. So we'll change this one up here too. And this different angle this way. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, you saw me go across and then dot and then go over, even though I already have the dot there. The reason I go across and then dot again is that's me marking to myself to pull that line over. And thinking about those, right? Because now I got to draw a bunch of lines like this instead of just straight up and down. Again, I got like kind of a longer one right here, a shorter one right here, and then again they get longer, same as this one, and then a little longer than that one, and then one more time, shorter than this one here, and then this one here, and then this one here, and then we have the space bar, something like this. And we're back to say things out loud and remind ourselves that it is a brick pattern. So I'm looking for like some squares here. Not even gonna go all the way down because that's a lot of work right now. So even just starting on this side. And that's how I start to do some keys. Oh man, it was off the page. Right, that's how I start to do some keys. It's even more if we want to like give the keys a little thickness, right? Like they're coming off of the keyboard there. But we can. Right now I have this verticals right here and here. And then we can even like start to think about some little verticals right here. Like think about some space between the keys. So I'm just trying to hint at it rather than like do all the detail in there. Yeah. So should you do keyboards this week? I mean, definitely every single one of you has a keyboard. So it's definitely an option, but you do not have to do a keyboard. But this is again how I would start to approach doing something like this, and to make it easier for myself rather than sitting there and drawing like in each individual key. That's way too much. Right? And these keys, at least the ones in front of me, they're a little bit of a trapezoid shape. So what that means is we have that square there. So I'll draw an X, draw a slightly larger square. And then there, and there. And there's a key. And then I look at the keys and they're a little curved, right? So I can take this and curve that a little bit, and curve that a little bit, and curve this a little bit, and curve that a little bit, right? So we make all these little adjustments to them, right? But rather than draw every single little key, we can just draw this one key as a representation of them. And there it is, representation of all the keys. And maybe we could go out and just do like the other keys, like the control, shift, caps lock, and stuff like that, draw slightly larger ones. But now people can start to get the point without having to do all of that detailed work. So now again, the same thing could apply for those that phone, right? No matter what the shape of them is, my starting point would be draw them as like a set and as a big block, and then divide it up into some smaller sections, pieces there. Now we have fillets and chamfers, letters on cans, and intersections with round objects. Intersections with round objects is the most difficult one, so I'm going to save that to last. So I don't tire myself out first. And let's look at fillets. So, right, there was a little bit of confusion earlier, and with whether something was in perspective or had a fillet on it, or a chamfer on it. And let's do this right here. And the order of operations can differ from cube to cube. So we have this cube right here, and I think I want another one. How do I want to do this? We'll do another one right next to it. We'll do another one right next to it. Always happy when those two don't line up with each other, and just for a little avoidance of some tangencies on the object. All right, so we got two cubes, and if we were to take this corner right here, and from the side view looks like this, and slice it at an angle, so slice it at an angle, and then pull that over, and pull that one over, and then right there, that is what we would call a chamfer, right? It is a chamfer, can be at any sort of degree or slice. Typically, it might be at 45 degrees. And what a chamfer is meant to do is to reduce the sharpness on the edge of an object. You all, I think, are sitting at a table right now, and your table may be chamfered. So if you look at the edge of your table right now, it may be chamfered. I'm actually looking at mine, and it is chamfered. Some tables, though, are not necessarily chamfered, right? They don't have that straight edge. Instead, they have a round edge, and that is called a fillet. So you can take this, and we'll make this a little larger so it's easier to see, and pull this one over here, and pull this one over here, and then pull that angle there. But then just remaining with that, I'm going to draw a curve, and I want to mirror that curve on the other side. So what I'm going to do is pull a line up and over and out and over. So right about there, and do a curve on the other side. And now I have a fillet on this. So if your table was not chamfered, again with an angled cut out of it, then your table will most likely be a table that is filleted. Let's write those words down. Let's also put this in ink. So chamfer and fillet. You can use a chamfer to help you make a fillet as far as the reference for where the curve begins and ends. I know this is not what you were trying to do, Jolyn, but it's worth showing people. So, oh, it's finishing up this fillet is just this curve right here and the curve right there. So there's a fillet. That's how I would do it. So one quick thing there, though, is let's draw a larger one here, much larger. Doesn't have to be a cube. That's not the important part here. Just give ourselves a little more space, and also just thinking about how I'm filling my page, and that I didn't want to have to draw two things here, so that's why I sketched something larger, right? So I was critiquing someone earlier a little bit about, about layout. So can even with something like this, just trying to think about these things mostly kind of lining up in the my layout. There's a little space here. Who knows what I'll do with it? But all right. What I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna make a fillet that is this big right here. So about even spacing over there looks something like this. Even spacing is roughly like this right here and over here, and then here, and then here. All right. And while we're at, let's just do this little thing right here and there and there. So we have, again, so I want to draw a fillet in here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna curve from here to here. And that means also over here. I'm also gonna curve from here to here, which also means down here is getting curved. And then right here to here. And then over here to here. Now this time I was not as precise as I was up here in terms of kind of trying to make sure that apexes are the same. It's so tiny, that's why I wasn't too concerned about a lot more precision in there. But the end result of what we're trying to show here is that right here, right at this, what used to be, right, a sharp corner, we have 1/8 of a sphere, right? Because rounded there, rounded there, rounded there, 1/8 of a sphere. So we're gonna pull this out over here. And then pull this one out over here. And pull this one down right here. And I'm sketching with my wrist, like I say not to do. We'll start rotating the pages more to be sure we're doing good practice and what I'm demoing to you. Oh, let's do this backside over here. All right, okay. So this is what it looks like, and to round all 3 edges there, again, we get this sort of partial sphere right here. That is why sometimes you'll see me kind of sketch things, particularly when I'm sketching products, and I'll like do it at the double line. It's like the softening of an edge. So it's not razor sharp. But I probably shouldn't have done this double line back here, because if there's a fillet over here, it's wrapping around and we probably might not even see the curvature back there. So it makes sense on these closer ones, but not on this one back here. Okay, sometimes I just do double lines just because I'm doing double lines, but that's where we're gonna start to mean, again, it's not having a razor sharp cube. Right, that has just, again, a super pointed corner versus again, these double lines are like a fillet there for a softer edge. The arc is coming towards us because it's like, again, this is like the square we can see in here. And so that curve is, yes, it's curving down a little bit, and it should be even more curved down here. That is now fillets and chamfers. In particular, they don't work when they're super tiny. Right, you would not see me filleting this key right here, but keys are a little rounded on the edge. So even if I was drawing this key, so adding some pen work to this key, I might add that pen work like this at first. And so just doing that outer edge, but ever so slightly, right? I'm just gonna round this bottom right here and then close that line up. And then all of these edges right here, I'm gonna start to do it kind of like these double lines, like just a hint at it being soft. Again, they're curved, they're not super sharp. And I'm intentionally not going to connect those lines right there. And so I think sometimes I've been telling people, right, it's important to close up your lines on your object so it looks solid. And the other reason why I close your lines on the object is so that when you do something like this, it feels intentional, this is sort of an indication, right, of a softer sort of filleted edge, because we can see these two lines, right? That's what we get right here, right? So I'm hinting at it here. So it's a way to, with line work, very simple line work, hint and indicate that you have a filleted edge. So now we got two more things: letters on cans and intersections with round objects. Let's do the letters on cans. Can I do it in a small space, or is that squeezing too much in there? I might want to do some demo stuff that needs more space for the. No, let's try and squeeze in here. Let's try and squeeze those letters on round cans in here. So if I had some text, again, just like before, roughly even spacing in the letters, something like this. It says cans, exclamation point. So I want to put that in there. So I'm going to put that on a round surface here. But I don't want to go all the way to the edge, right? So what I need to do then is actually draw another ellipse, right? Slightly lower. It's going to be so similar to that one. If it's the same, that's okay. And then another one even lower than that, right? And that's giving my top line and my bottom line for the cans thing. If the cans thing is right here, dead center, then right here in the center, yes, here's my rectangle. But as they go around, they're going to get smaller and smaller. So maybe cans wasn't the right thing to write here because it's not going to get small enough. Actually, let's have it say cans, but start with the C right here. So it's going to get smaller and smaller. So there's this one, and then this one, and then this one. So now, right, it means I have to write C, right, in this first one. A is getting compressed into this next one. N is getting compressed even smaller. S is super small in there, and we can like barely see the exclamation point back there. Again, the benefit of using a marker in this instance, and also because I'm not trying to do a specific font, is now I can kind of go back with my pen, trace around the edges of the thickness of the marker. To do that. And this, again, slowly getting a little more narrow and narrow with each letter. Try and make sure that they are dropping down to the same, again, baseline right here. That's the whole point of making that round ellipses there. This S being the most tricky one. And really trying to squeeze it in there. And the exclamation point just like should be like paper thin by the time it gets back there. All right, so now I have this label that says cans on this can. So, which is odd because it says cans, but it's just one can. Rectangle and rectangle, not square. And also that works for taking a square and putting the square in perspective. For putting a square on something round, that's entirely different. There is a way. Let me go find someone's more complicated example. Oh yes, right here, wrapping graphics. So what has he done here? Start with a cylinder. From a cylinder has a plane. And what you might not be able to see right here, and I'll go sketch it right here, was not initially easy to see with this, is that cylinder, let's do this here, is there's a plane on the front of that cylinder. It's not sticking out as far as this one, but I want to say, right, it's right here. It's on the front. We look at that from the top, it looks like this. Right, this plane sticking out. Then goes backwards here, comes back to the point where the plane is intersecting with the cylinder and draws an ellipse. And where that ellipse intersects with the cylinder, that's how far the graphic would wrap backwards. So again, what he does is, again, take this right here and draw an ellipse for however long this thing is. So that would mean right here, this graphic is going to wrap all the way back here. And you want to make it really complicated, you could have your cans written out on here and draw an ellipse for every single one of them so that you know where each of them is intersecting on that, and you'd get a super accurate compression. Now, why would anyone ever choose to do that in this day and age? For the challenge. You would literally be doing this just for the challenge of like wrapping a graphic on here, because there's so many computer programs that you can do this with. I would, if I ever chose to do this, it would, like, in terms of this level of accuracy, it would simply be for the challenge, right? For a quick sketch, I'm going to guess at it. So we got fillets and chamfers, letters on cans, and buttons, which brings us to our last one, intersections with round objects. So let's check that out. And even before we do that, I think I have one from last term, last time we did this. Let's just look at what we did there to go over it. We'll still do some sketching right now to demonstrate it, but let's just go look at the last time I did that intersection with a round object. Was this one here? Yep, it was this one here. So that's not too informative if you just looking at it. So let's go through the process of that one. I thought maybe looking at it might help, but no, it doesn't. It just makes sense if you were there. But let's switch this paper up again. Have a trash paper because it's going to get all these marks over it later on. Write a to-do list on it or something. So, right, so let's draw a round object. So we can do it two ways. We'll start with the loose one just because it's going to be faster to see where it's going. And then we'll try a little bit more precise way. So I got this round thing here, this ellipse right here, and this, and then a larger ellipse down here for the base. And now I just need to establish some sort of perspective here. Let's do this right there. So with that, it means I pull this line up right there and this line up right there, because that's where it's intersecting the bottom and also then intersecting the top. And now what I have, right, is a plane, right, cutting through my cylinder, right? Just to be sure, right, for everyone, what this looks like from the top, right, is a plane cutting through my cylinder. And I, again, this vertical line here does two things. It helped me, again, establish where that was at the top to get this top line right here, and just continue to establish my perspective. But the other thing it gave me is a reference point. So if I want this cylinder, so let's look at it from the side, right? If I want this cylinder, right, to be a watering can, well, now I can go right here, pull a line straight out, I can follow my perspective. But then it doesn't go straight out, right? It goes up at an angle and then reaches the top up here. So now there's that. There's that, and it gets wider as it goes down. So it's not going to be parallel to that. It's going to be wider than it. So I think it looks like that. All right, so now I have, again, this little spout coming out here. Currently, the spout is paper thin, right? It has no dimension to it. It's paper thin. Before we add any dimension to it, Let's add the handle in the back, right? I can just continue to follow the perspective. I intentionally kind of lined them up right here so I could just have the top of the handle line up with that. We're going to exaggerate this handle, make it much bigger than it is here, so that we can actually just see it back there. So I have it come all the way out over there, and then just again vertically straight down, and then at some point come back. So again, so just trying to follow the perspective that I've established here already. So something like that, right? So there's the handle back there. Again, at this point, also paper thin. That's mostly it as far as drawing some things sticking out of a round object. It's going to having that plane. We're going to add some dimension to it, but at this point, does anyone have any questions about what I did? Because adding the dimensions is going to make it a little more confusing, but if there's any questions about this point, the next things are going to be probably even more frustrating. Nope. All right. So, making it easy for myself, let's just say this thing is square for the opening, and this one is square here. So similar actually what we're doing here, we're drawing a line across coming across the front. So when I say a line coming across the front, I'm drawing a line right here. I'm trying to draw it perpendicular to this one, right? Going off to that left vanishing point versus the right vanishing point. All right, so that line I just sketched is looking like this. Actually, I sketched it right here, didn't I? I sketched right here. So I need to do another one actually right here, actually in the front. That's a little off, right? Because it was going to converge with that one too fast. And back there. Right, so I'm almost kind of working backwards to sketch a box around this thing, right? So we can actually just finish that up, right? There's the square around it. I work backwards to get there, which is all that is just to show, give me some references for like this, and this, and this, and this, and drop a line down, make it wider over here, and there is that. Except, right, this is in front of it, right? It needs to go backwards a little bit. And to do that, I need to draw another ellipse at that height, right? That height, again, I already at this point, so I just fit an ellipse in there. And I'm just going to pull a line backwards into space. I'm going to just drop a line down here and pull a line backwards into space. And now, from this corner there to there, and there to there, it's getting hard to see with all that marker in there. So let's put in pen exactly what's happening. It's very, very small what is happening in there. But essentially what I'm doing is I said, hey, right, this thing is square in the front. Okay, it's going back to, should be going back to here and to there, right? So it's going back to there. It's going back to there. That's where it intersects. It also goes back to here. So you can see just ever so slight, a small sliver at the top, and there's ever so slight, a small curve in there. It's this, right? That curve is so small, it might as well just be straight. And then we can do the same thing at the bottom here. There's something all the way over here. Where was that? Right here, here, and back right there. So this one we might see a bit more of. Again, a bit more of that curve. We'll just try to exaggerate it just a little bit. And I did not draw a contour line all the way around, and just put a little bit of a curve right there, kind of trying to match this one, but a little more open. And that's all we need. We don't have to worry about the intersection in the back because we can't see this thing intersecting with the back, but you would do a very similar thing. Let's try one at a slightly different angle. Actually, let's just extend this thing in. Yeah, let's try one at a slightly different angle just to really drill home the point of what was happening there. So let's try a little more higher up so we can see just a bit more of that curvature. So like this and like this. And then say something, again, right about here. So drop that down, and here. And this is there, and there. So let's do something right around here. Oh, that's not open enough. So I got something right there, and let's do just very close to the bottom, right around there, and something right there. And so now, if there is a big, just a bar, I'm not going to try and make it anything. There's a big bar coming through this thing. All right. Now let's do this with a thicker one here, right? So it intersects right here and goes all the way into there. So now I got to draw this curve right along here, right? So that's a lot easier to see because I sketched it so much larger. So sometimes it works to just do some abstract things instead of trying to do something intentional, like a little kettle. And you could have a square in perspective to sketch your ellipse. And then you could just continue that on and turn it into a rectangle. And that's what you'd have. So I could continue this right here. But that one is that one. That, and they do touch like right there, just that one point. We have that little tangent. The main thing here was more about like in like this, about like kind of right adding the curvature onto like the intersection point. But most of the time, right, it's going to be very, very tiny.